Whoa, guys, check this out. Look. Whoa. Oh, I'm into the portal. Look at that. Hey everyone, Dave here, back again with another review of a much older game. Lately I've been doing a lot of recent stuff like Mad Max, Transformers Devastation, Until Dawn, but now I think it's time to take it back a little bit because I'm very slow with reviews when it comes to video games because I have just so many to play. But on my list of must-play games was one that was being referred to as one of the best games of this past generation, possibly one of the best games of all time, and that is the sequel to Valve's original hit from I think 2008, 2008, 2000. I think it was. I'm almost certain it was 2008. Between 2007 and 2009 was when the original came out, but it was in 2011 when Valve decided to release their latest sequel, because we know for sure they have problems counting in threes. Portal 2. And in the sequel, the protagonist from the first game, known as Shell, finds herself in yet another facility, a rather familiar one. And the main reason why it seems so familiar is because GLaDOS, the maniacal robot that was trying to kill her in the first game, has returned to try to kill her again. Only this time things get a little bit more involved when you got some brand new characters added to the mix, as well as much more intricate yet really fun and extravagant puzzles for Shell to solve, while at the same time trying to uncover the mysteries behind Aperture Science. And that's literally as much of the story that I can possibly give you guys, because one of the wonders about this game is exploring the story, having the story being unveiled to you bit by bit as you navigate through the game, just like in the original. Because in the first one, the game started off as just a series of puzzles with this voice taunting you after each chamber that you would go through, and that was really about it. In fact, for a point there, when I was playing the first game, I was thinking to myself, why is this game such a big hit? Why was it responsible for a sequel? And it wasn't until the halfway point of that game where certain things started to show up, certain behind the scenes stuff, especially when you would literally go behind the walls of those chambers, that you would see things scribbled on the walls that made you think that there was a bigger thing going on within that facility. And it's only towards the end that you start to figure out what exactly did happen within Aperture Science and how there was an actual story behind that place. And here, they decided to just take that and make an even deeper story with twists and turns at every corner that still manages to retain that minimal style from the first game, where you don't have that many cutscenes. You just have the first-person perspective, and you got audio dialogue from the characters involved to feed you the story and let you connect the dots yourself. And it's all thanks to the characters that you get to interact with in this game, which aren't really that many, but they were able to deliver just so much. One of them is obviously GLaDOS, returning from the first game, still being as snarky and as sarcastic and as condescending as ever, but still just making you laugh, while at the same time wishing that she would just shut the hell up. But there, to help you by your side, is this other character named Whitley, which is this tiny little robot that manages to help you throughout the game and tries to get you out of the chamber and outside of the clutches of GLaDOS and keep you from having her kill you. And these two characters have a nice chemistry with one another, despite the fact that they're trying to do the opposite. One's trying to kill me and one's trying to help me. And so, as you navigate through the story, it's all about them delivering just their very witty dialogue, their jokes, making the game even more humorous than it could have been. While at the same time, two things happening. One, you get some background to Aperture Science, more so than even in the first game. There's an entire segment in this game where you get introduced to a new character that I'm not going to spoil, even though chances are you probably already know who this character is, because this game has been out for quite some time. But let's just say that the person they got to voice this character was just perfect casting. Talk about memorable. When you talk about memorable voice performances, no matter how short a amount of time they had on in the game, this game just nails it. And that character that this certain person played just left a lasting effect on me after that segment was done. But beyond that, the little background story to that entire segment is very sentimental, pulls at the heartstrings, while at the same time makes you laugh about the whole thing, and definitely provides some insight as to what went down within Aperture Science and within this facility, and how that connects to GLaDOS, and also her story with that is connected to the character of Shell that you play as well as Whitley, and how that all ties together is a story on its own that's just going left and right, especially during the halfway point or about the two-thirds of the way through. There's this big twist that is not so much big in the shocking manner where it didn't really surprise me all that much. In fact, I started to suspect certain things, and when certain words were being mentioned, I'm like, oh no. But regardless, because of the characters that were involved, it still felt like a punch to the gut. Like, as soon as it was happening, because of how involved I was with some of these characters, I was like, oh my god, no, you son of a bitch. And it doesn't hold up from there. From there, you go on to that portion that I was talking about that it gives you some background information as to what happened in Aperture Science. And then towards the end, with this really climactic battle that was very exciting. And then when something kind of appears, you're thinking to yourself, are they really going to go with this? And then it happens, and you're just left there with your jaw open like, wow, they went there. I can almost say that the writing for this game, both the humor as well as the story, is perfect, but if there was just one thing that I can slightly nitpick about, it would have to be the character of Wheatley, who's voiced by Stephen Merchant. He's a famous British comedian. He was on the UK version of The Office. And he's a really funny guy. I've seen him in plenty of stuff, and I really like him. And I really liked him as Whitley for about 2/3 of the time, because towards the end, especially after this big twist, I'm not going to say what it is, obviously, but after that midway point where that story bomb gets dropped, his character started to his shtick with his character, with him being like, oh no, don't worry, let me see what doing that Jeff Goldblum type of thing. It was kind of wearing down on me just a little bit. It was really funny in the beginning, and it still had its moments towards the end, and especially during the middle it was fine, but just somewhere between the second and third act, I whispered to myself a couple times, dude, just shut up. And I was like, whoa, I like this character. No matter at what point in the story, I like this character. Why am I saying that? And that's because I just felt like I wish his character would have changed up his brand of humor, because it just started to wear down on me just a little bit. I wish they would have held him back. But besides that, his character again left an impression on me, as well as the remainder of the story for this game. Now let me start off by saying that I know that the focus for this game is not on how it looks, because if this was to be made into a open world game, in fact some people kind of tampered with the game when it got released on PC, and they messed around with mods and just changing the environments to see what it would have looked like if it was played from a third person perspective, or if you were able to escape the facility and actually navigate through the surrounding environments that maybe Valve put in there. I'm not entirely sure if they put it in there, or if they made it, or if modders made it for themselves and then they put it into the game. Because like I said, the focus of this game is just on the puzzles and this facility. So if it was to be made into an open world game, then I can kind of say that maybe the effects should have been, the graphics should have been better up to par. But like I said, that's not where the focus of this game is. It's on the puzzles and on the story. So the design for the graphics in this game, or the design for the environments, are a little bit minimalistic, but they're still very slick in style, especially when you go into test chambers that are polished and brand new. It looks all white, but you got this characterized design to those puzzles and to those chambers, that it feels like its own character. This facility feels like its own place, and that's really what you care about most, not because the texture looks like actual graphite or something like that. But I will say that this game definitely bumps up the level of fidelity when it comes to the graphics over the first game. I remember the first game having graphics that served their purpose, but they didn't look like they didn't stand out necessarily. And compared to games on the PS4, Xbox One, obviously this game doesn't necessarily stand up. But again, that's not where its focus is on. But I can definitely commend them for trying different things, especially with some of the rooms within the facility that have now been trashed after the first game. Without spoiling the first game, there's environments here that don't necessarily look all that clean, but they look believable. I like how I can see the branches going through some of the chambers, so some of the walls have deteriorated, and you can see some of the debris on the ground. I like how it has this very personified characterization to this environment. Since you're dealing with portals and having to put these portals in certain high areas where you rely on a certain jump to get through a puzzle, physics is a humongous part of this game as well as the first one. And I can definitely say that the physics in this game are very fluid, they're very dynamic, and they're just overall really great, and they just felt very right, especially when you use gravity to solve certain puzzles, besides just opening the door, having to traverse a certain gap and reaching a certain platform, and relying on those very well made, well polished graphics. I'm happy to say that this game got it right. And I already mentioned the voice work and how great everyone is, especially that particular person playing that particular character. I mean, just, oh my god, just perfect casting. If there was another thing that I could nitpick about, would have to be Shell herself. And again, much like with the presentation of this game, the graphics and everything, I can understand this was not a focus from the developers. They didn't focus on this because this wasn't necessarily the most important part of the game. But being that it has been a few, at the time of the release for this game, it had been a couple of years since the first game. I think the first game, like I said, was probably out in '08. So a few years have gone by since the first one, and being that they were actually making the first game to console, which was the PlayStation 3, I was hoping that maybe they would add some animations to Shell whenever you do see her, because the only point where you see her is whenever you make a portal that's like right next to the portal you just made, so you can kind of see her through like a mirror type effect. And whenever you do move around, especially at the beginning of the game where you have to make your first portal, similar to the first game where you make the first portal and you can see yourself in the through the other portal, like you get what I'm saying. When you move, she still has these stiff animations where she's like this, or she's got the gun and she's just like ying, 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 like that, but she doesn't move around. Or when she's resting, she's just very still like this. She's not like breathing or relaxing. I just wish she had certain touches like that added to her, because I don't know, it just would have made the whole game feel a bit more grounded. Like, oh my god, this is a person that I'm controlling. But I can understand why they didn't put that in there, because seldom will you see Shell actually on screen. Most of the time it's from the first person perspective, and you're just going to be making portals to get from point A to point B, not to look at yourself. And much like with the first one, those puzzles are amazing. They're very well made. Obviously, the focus of the game, besides the story, is to make these puzzles and make you think about where to put each portal, which one is going to be put around what object. Obviously, you got the return of the companion cube, and they're just really well made. I sometimes when I would solve one, I couldn't fathom having there being a developer that would just sit in their office all day or sit in a room all day coming up with the puzzles for this game. Oh my god, like what type of person, what type of maniacal mind would come up with would just spend their entire day creating puzzles for games like Portal? Somebody who would design them for their own evil purposes, but they found out that they could get paid for such a thing, so they went over to work for Valve and decided to bring us the Portal games. But the puzzles in this game are just so well made, and I love the difficulty starting off with very simple and routine ones, but then getting even more and more challenging as you progress. And they're I don't want to say they're not forgiving, but at the same time, you always feel like this glimmer of hope that you can solve this. As opposed to the first one, I never had to look one up in this game. The longest that I spent with the puzzle in this game was about half an hour, which I think is just right. That's just the right amount of difficulty to where I was stumped, but I always felt like bit by bit, I would progress in a chamber and be like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, and then I would get stuck again. But again, I never felt like I was going to need to pull my hair out in order to solve these puzzles, or even worse, look it up in the internet like I unfortunately did. I think once, maybe twice in the first game. Here, I actually felt like something, my involvement with this puzzle mattered, and I felt like I was going to be able to solve this. And you have to be patient. You have to be patient with some of these puzzles. Sometimes you need to rely on physics, because it's not just a matter of putting a portal here and then putting another one here or putting a cube here. Sometimes physics plays a huge part, whether it be with you making a certain jump or maybe having an object fall a certain way. It all matters. But it wouldn't be a sequel if they didn't allow you to use brand new mechanics. Obviously, that would just be very routine. So, therefore, Valve decided to include some new mechanics, some new items that you're able to use within these puzzles to your advantage so you can solve them. And obviously, these mechanics not only make it possible for you to solve these puzzles, but just makes it even more fun to do so. Like, you got this goop that gets introduced halfway through the game where you can use this gel to to either bounce off a platform or run across one super fast, or even create a portal in an area where you couldn't create a portal before, as well as these rays that allow you to defy gravity and will pull you inwards or outwards, as well as this brand new form of cube that is able to deflect lasers in a certain direction. And all these different mechanics just blend really well together along with these puzzles. And more importantly, these puzzles don't just feel like one chamber after another. At a point, the game decides to introduce story to those puzzles, and they kind of blend together so that you're able to navigate through the game as well as the story. Especially during that segment where you get to learn about Aperture's past. It's almost like you're... Without getting into spoilers, it's almost like you are walking through a different time period. It's almost like you're actually learning about the story of the game while at the same time doing the game itself, and it's just wonderfully done. I can't compliment this game enough when it comes to that particular development about how they were able to blend different mechanics together to deliver this really satisfying experience. But here's the thing, you know how I just said that I was glad that they didn't just repeat the chamber over and over and actually took the puzzles and make them part of the story for the game? Well, unfortunately, they kind of end up doing that, especially after that humongous twist, that drop of a story bomb. They kind of go back to having to do the sequence of test chambers at one after another, with a slight little twist, a slight humorous aesthetic twist that I'm not going to obviously ruin for you guys. But after, I wouldn't really mind this. I really wouldn't have minded going back to doing this chamber after chamber type of thing if it wasn't for that big plot twist that happened in the middle, because after delivering that kind of bomb, going back to the test chamber just feels kind of off. But hey, if you're feeling kind of lonely going to this facility with GLaDOS just gnawing at your conscience, then fear not, because if it's a sequel to a game that just had single player only, you're bound to find a multiplayer component in there somewhere. And Portal 2 is no exception. However, unlike other games, they decided to go with co-op. Instead of mixing it in with competitive multiplayer, they made a co-op campaign. And I really do mean campaign, because they introduced two brand new characters in the form of two little robots named Atlas and Peabody, who are very charismatic. And you and your partner play as these two characters, going through specifically made test chambers that are, again, specifically made for co-op, for two people to interact with one another to solve these puzzles. And of course, there isn't as an evolved story as the one in the single player campaign. You're not going to find humongous twists and turns, but GLaDOS does come in with brand new lines of dialogue. And that's something that they simply did not need to make. They could have made something very routine and mundane for their multiplayer component, but instead they made this brand new experience that I was really hoping to get into, but unfortunately I could not find anybody to play with me. Sad face. I really appreciated that they added the option to either play locally with another person next to you in split screen, or go online and play with somebody over the PlayStation Network. But I couldn't find anyone to play with on either one of those modes, so I couldn't engage myself in multiplayer. And the only thing that I was able to do is watch at least like the first 5 or 10 minutes of the co-op campaign online, because I didn't really want to spoil it for myself. So I just watched like the first 5 minutes and then stopped it right there. So I can't straight out say that, oh, there's no big twist, there's no big story in the background, because there might be. But I'm scared to find out for myself, because honestly, I want to hold out the possibility that maybe I can go to a friend's house or something like that, take my PS3, take this game, leave it in there digitally, and bring a second controller and maybe play this game with another person, with another buddy of mine. And that would be very fun and very exciting. So I'm holding out hope that maybe someday I'll be able to do that, but even though I'm not able to directly say what's wrong and what's good about the co-op, I can only say that I'm glad that they took chances with bringing us a very immersive experience with the co-op, bringing in two brand new characters and bringing in GLaDOS to deliver more lines of very sarcastic but very funny dialogue. So is Portal 2 worthy of all those accolades it received all those years ago? Yeah. Pretty much. I love this game. I mean, minus my nitpicks, which I'm gonna have with practically everything, because I'm just that type of person. I love this game. There was just so many moments of this game that I was just repeating to myself, from the gameplay to the puzzles to that specific section in the story with that character that pops up, and the lines of memorable dialogue from all the characters involved, and how much they were able to give to us while at the same time having it be so little. Like no cutscenes, your character not talking, not interacting directly with the characters, and just not having the sharpest textures or the most intricate graphics, but at the same time, the charm, the humor, and the backstory to this game was able to make this brand of that is the Portal series, which is just 2 games, that it became quite a bit of phenomenon, and I'm very sad of myself that I didn't play this game a whole lot earlier. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I give Portal 2 a solid 9 out of 10, and I'm very regretful that I did not play this game a whole lot sooner. Honestly, because of the way this game ends, without going into spoilers, I wouldn't mind there not ever being a Portal 3, but if they do, please bring back everyone involved with this game, and only then can it deliver, hopefully, a game that can live up to the expectations of bringing back a franchise like Portal. Because, man, they got a lot of expectations to meet. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of Portal 2 if you have played it, but if you have not and would like to purchase the game, then be sure to use the link in the description below. It would really help me out a lot. So now this is the end of my video game review. I don't have anything else to say. Goodbye.